Up next, you're going to find out and learn my framework for doing fast, mid, and slow tempo runs and how I use it at different times of the year. How to be cautious with tempo runs as they are harder on your body than you think. Why fueling before, during, and after is extremely crucial. Why doing tempo runs might be better than time trials and races for some people. Some people out there don't like them. And a bunch more. Let's get into it. And I look to break a tempo run down to a slow tempo, a mid-tempo, and a fast tempo. And what I base that on is the slow tempo is between my current half marathon and marathon pace. Mid-tempo is between my half marathon and 10K pace. And then fast tempo is between my 10K and 5K pace. And the fast tempo is actually closer to what I think more people, what you would say is 60 minutes, what you could sustain for 60 minutes. I never personally understood that because I'm like, I never run a 60-minute race. Like, my 10K time is anywhere from 36 to 38 minutes, depending on how fit I am. So I'm like, all right, 60-minute race. My half marathon is an hour, 22 minutes. I'm like, what the hell is a 60-minute race? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Whereas maybe someone that runs a 10K at 60 minutes, there you go. You could run it. So it really bothered me, that whole 60-minute, what you can do for 60 minutes. Even for the bike, it's always, the FCP to what you could sustain for 60 minutes. I'm like, what the hell bike race am I doing that's 60 minutes long? So I do the slow tempo, mid tempo, fast tempo as a guide for myself. And that helps me. I usually actually only do slow tempo stuff, which is between half marathon and marathon pace, because that ends up being, it correlates perfectly with Z3. It correlates perfectly with, I could do this for 60 minutes. That felt great. I could tackle another 15 minutes. So that actually, slow tempo and mid tempo end up being more of what I should be in, but I always slide into that like kind of 10K pace because it feels good. So that's a sidebar. Feel free to, if you want to add your 2 cents on that. You think that's a wrong way of approaching it? Do you think that's okay? What do you think?
No, the bottom line is, so long as we define what we mean by tempo when we give a specific session to someone, nobody can say we're wrong. So I know that's a get out of jail card, but the point is, if you're a good coach, when you're sitting with your athletes and you're giving them a session, you need to tell them what to do and explain it in a few different ways to make sure. So you can say, yep, today I'd like you to do a tempo run, guys. You've got a half marathon coming up, so I've given you this 10K session to do, and we know that a 10K, a tempo run for the half marathon should be at half marathon pace. It's 10K you're doing. Don't go too fast. You all know roughly what your target time is for the half marathon. Monitor it. You might be running by heart rate or feel, but that's what we're aiming for. And so you define it and clarify it and say it in different ways to make sure that everyone knows what the session is they're doing. This is, again, comes back, the hardest thing is getting it all online or asking ChatGTP, as we've done in a previous podcast. It's a hard one to get around because it can mean different things to different people. So you have to make sure that a good coach will define their terms. And so if people are looking for coaches out there, make sure that you're getting a coach that defines the terms and knows what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Now that's a great recap to it all. I'm gonna actually ask my always the dark side of tempo runs. When should you not do a tempo run? And I'll preface this with a quick sidebar story of the downsides of tempo runs. I'm finding out that it takes me so long to recover from tempo runs, like 72 hours plus, so 3 days plus to recover from even moderate tempo runs, like slow tempo runs, what should be most people. And I just think I'm genetically but I can recover really fast from 12x400s though. So, 36 hours, I'm ready to go. So it's like I'm naturally predisposed to running fast, which is, fine and dandy, but if I want to run a fast marathon or run a fast half marathon or even 10K, I need to start doing tempo runs. I've learned to be very careful about when I prescribe them. And I know a lot of people, they recover real fast from tempo runs, even as they get older. And they recover real slow from speed work. So everyone's different. So, know yourself. That's just my own personal anecdotal story on that. I don't do them that much. I only do them 4 to 6 weeks out from a race. And I've tried experimenting. I might do more like high Z2, the Maffetone stuff, I'll do a lot of that in the base season, and I'll do that all year long. But I know not to touch that tempo pacing because it fries me. Like I literally feel like I sleep poorly, I don't recover well. So any downsides that you have to tempo runs?
Well, no, the thing is with tempo runs is the classic is you send two guys out for a run together, they're mates, and they're always just trying to half inch each other, one guy a bit quicker than the other, and just test how fit they are. They end up doing a tempo run for an easy run the whole way around with a sprint at the end. And so you don't want to be getting into these sort of runs when it's an easy run. The thing with a tempo run is why you shouldn't put too many in there is that they feel great for some reason. When you do them and you finish, you feel great. You got this buzz, the endorphins are flowing. But I tend to find that I don't sleep as well afterwards because I'm a little bit more tired than I feel. I don't feel that tired at the end of it, but actually you've done quite a bit of hard work. And I think people don't realize how fatiguing they are and then do another hard session too close after them. So I generally after tempo run will have 2 easy days before giving someone another hard run. And then obviously it's an older athlete, I might even give them 3 easy days. But you've just got to be careful with how often you introduce them into the training and make sure that the athlete is fit enough and ready to do them. But I like to give time trials for races and things. A tempo run is a good substitute for a time trial. Okay. It's a little bit easier than a time trial allows it. A time trial is pretty much race pace, but in training conditions or you're trying to get close to it. A tempo run's a little bit easier. So sometimes I might give a tempo run to someone who's nervous about a time trial and nervous about failing. I'll say a tempo run. They don't feel quite so stressed out. Oh, I can achieve that because there's no strict boundaries around it. So again, it's knowing your athletes and how you work with them. And again, it comes down to terminology. Again, it's quite a complex area, but and it's difficult to get it all through in a podcast because there's so many variations.
Yeah, you actually touched on the fatigue and the recovery needed, and I actually saw a graph from Training Peaks. I think it was Training Peaks, and they showed the glycogen depletion from a tempo run versus from an interval, let's call threshold or VO2 max session, VO2 max building, like a 12x400 or even a 4x5 minutes at 5K pace. That's an interval run versus a 30 or 40 minute tempo run that's around your 10K pace. The amount of glycogen depletion was like 30% more than even though one, you feel better and two, you ran slower, but you did actually more work, as you said. So you need more recovery time because you depleted more glycogen. But as you said exactly, people come back after 48 hours and they go do another workout. So then you deplete glycogen even more and you keep coming in these depleted glycogen states. And then after 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you're burned out. And that's what happened to me. That's actually happened to a guy that I'm coaching. And it's because you feel good. You're like, oh, I'm not going that fast. This is fine. This is a pace that I can. So that's another danger. And that's why I do the polarized training where I do a lot of fast stuff, interval sprints, do a lot of easy work. And this is the 80-20 principle in action. And it works perfectly for me. So yeah, I'm going to kind of end it there. Quick recap, and I'll let you say your piece. So we talked about gray zone, obviously tempo runs, why they're important. Krebs cycle, we didn't touch on, but we give you a quick definition on that. Lactate versus lactic acid versus the lactic acidosis and lactose. We all explain that stuff. Lactose is milk. The difference between this and threshold runs. Cyclists call this a sweet spot. That's just something. If you ever see sweet spot, that's a cyclist triathlon term for tempo-ish. That's a conversation for another day. This isn't a cycling podcast. We're talking about running on here. But I always see sweet spot with cyclists. I'm like, what the hell is the sweet? And then I Googled and was like, it's like between high Z2 Maffetone and then like right before threshold. Anyway, digress from that.
Well, it's based on power. It gets complicated because they base it on power.
Exactly.
Functional threshold power.
I'm sure, Stride Power Meter, there's a sweet spot in there. Why it's important to do it. The theories I subscribe to: slow, medium, and fast tempo. Some examples of tempo runs, there's so many examples. And, when to not do this in training. Mike, how do you want to end this? Did we cover everything? Do you want to say anything else?
Yeah, the only one thing that slightly different, but you were saying about glycogen depletion. What I tend to do with my guys is make sure they take gels with them and are topping up with the glycogen on the way, so they're not so depleted. as they finish. I know it's muscle glycogen and you're taking it in and it's got to go through the liver, but constantly making sure that there's enough glycogen stores in the body to get through the session.
I think I would say it's because you don't feel tired. You're like, I don't need it. So you got to like you said, you tell your athletes, please take it, but it's like, but I don't need it though, you know? And it's like I learned in triathlon and in marathon running, you got to take it when you don't need it, because that's when you actually need it, you know?
And then there is, and people don't like to talk about it, it's a taboo. There is a lot of problems around weight and people feeling they need to be lighter all the time in training and taking in all this sugar during running. It helps you there and then, but is it good for us long term to be taking in all this amount of sugar that we're taking in when we're training? So there's a lot of issues around that, and I think people just generally, well, if I can just not take it in, I'll lose a few extra, pounds or a few extra kilos in body weight. I'm not in. This isn't the time to say whether that's good or bad, but that's another reason why people tend to undereat when they're training as well.
Yeah, because the rabbit hole on that is, what's your priority? Is it to lose weight or is it to run fast? You kind of can't have both, you know? Like, you might lose weight because you're running fast, but I found that I actually ran my fastest when I was my heaviest and I had the most body fat. So, conversation for another day. I'm going to end this. Thanks, everyone, for your time. See ya. If you want to learn more about this topic, we went into further detail. You should go and check that out right here.